We paid off our 30-year mortgage at 30 years old. And I'll share with you the story on how we did this because maybe it can help somebody else pay off their home super early. But if you're just here for the cliff notes, just know that essentially this does not involve us working 2 or 3 different jobs at the same time and saving every penny, right? This involved us getting involved in real estate early and making some good real estate investments. So we got involved in real estate early, we learned the business, made some good investments, and then ultimately we cashed out. So we didn't start with a lot of money, but we did give ourselves a lot of time. We bought our first home when I was like 23 or 24 years old, which is not the norm around my circle of friends. So for me, I felt like I got a head start just because I bought a home early. I started working for like a retail company when I was in high school. It's one of those jobs that anybody can get, but it had a lot of room for opportunity, and I was able to work myself up to where when I was like 20 years old, I had a pretty good salary. I also made a huge decision on not going to college. So at the time, I had no student loans because, well, I didn't go to school. So for me, I was working myself up in this company, and I just felt like the next natural progression was for me to buy a house. But at the time, I just felt like I wasn't ready. So I wanted to make sure that I can comfortably afford a house payment on my own. So what I did was I rented an apartment and I signed a 9-month lease, and I lived with a friend. Now, because I lived with a friend, I had a roommate, he was responsible for half of the rent, but I didn't want to think like that. So what I did was I made the entire rental payment on my own, and then when it was time for him to pay his portion of the rent, I just put that into a separate savings account. Because in my head, it's like it's not even there, I don't see it, so mentally in my head, I'm making the mortgage payment on my own. So because we had a 9-month lease, about 5 to 6 months in, I contacted a real estate agent. She connected me with the lender, and I got pre-approved for a mortgage. I suppose because I had good income and I didn't have a lot of debts, I was able to get pre-approved, and we started looking at homes. Next thing you know, I found a home that I liked. It was a modest home, needed a little bit of work, but I wanted to live like below my means. So I bought a modest home, and I asked my roommate at the time, hey, lease is about to expire. I have a new place. We already live together. Would you live with me again in a bigger place with a driveway, backyard, etc.? And a big bonus for both of us was that, well, a big bonus for me was that the mortgage payment was less than the rent. And I was able to tell my roommate, if you move in with me, your monthly payment would even be less than what you're paying now for a bigger place. So it's like a no-brainer for him. And the home that I bought was a 3-bedroom home, so I had a spare bedroom. So it wasn't long before I found another roommate to rent the 3rd bedroom. So we had 2 people living in the home with me that were renting rooms. And at the time, it was great because I was young. I didn't want to live in a home all by myself anyways. That would be boring and lonely. So I had people living with me, made it fun, and they also paid their portion of the rent, which was to me more than my mortgage. And I was like, man, something is here. Like a light bulb went off, and I ended up wanting to get into real estate full time. So I jumped and I got my real estate license, and I quit my 9-to-5 job that I worked like 6 or 7 years in the company. So what I did was I got my real estate license, I became a real estate agent, and I started to learn the business. What I loved about being a realtor is that there's no income ceiling, but there's also no income floor. So some people will look at that as kind of risky, as 100% commission, where if you don't make anything, not only do you get paid zero, but you also have expenses. So you're in the red, right? But I felt comfortable because I had my most expensive expense taken care of. That was my mortgage payment. And then outside of that, I either had no debt or very little debt. So with me being a real estate agent, I started learning more and more about the industry, right? That's kind of normal to learn about the industry that you work in. And I started learning stuff like if you buy a home to live in, you can put a very small down payment and your interest rates are a lot better compared to buying a home as a sole investment. So with me knowing that, I started moving around quite a bit. It also helped. One cool bonus was that I get paid a commission whenever I sell a home. And I could also be my own agent when I buy a home. So for some of these homes, I would need to put like a 3% down payment, but I would also get a 3% commission. So I would negotiate the seller to pay all of my closing costs, otherwise I wouldn't buy the home. And essentially I could be a little bit picky and aggressive because I really wasn't in a rush, and I looked at this as like an investment. So I wasn't picky. I didn't need to love the home. I just needed to like the home. And I really like to buy homes that needed a little bit of work where I can do light renovations so I can increase the value of the home. So one thing led to another, and I ended up buying another house. And I really wanted to keep my first house as a rental. I took photos, I advertised it that it was for rent, or coming soon, and then I just ultimately I chickened out and I put it for sale. The way that I saw it is I could cash out like $30,000-$40,000, and to me at that time was a lot of money, and I already won so much. I bought the home with a very small down payment. I didn't pay my closing costs. I had 2 roommates living in there with me for 2 years, where they technically paid the mortgage. So for me, the way that I looked at it was a really small down payment. I live for free, and I'm cashing out $30,000-$40,000. You can't lose. So I ended up selling it, and then I moved to the next house. And then I was just like, man, I made $30,000-$40,000. And I just always think about that first 9-to-5 job that I had, that I worked so hard at. $30,000-$40,000 is a huge percentage of that annual salary that I had. And I didn't have to do all the things that I did to get that salary, right? To me, it's like working more with your brain than working for money by the hour. So I loved it, and I wanted to do it again. Next thing you know, I did 2 more flips. One that was really good, and then one that was not so good. But good thing I didn't get hurt. I didn't lose a lot of money on the second one. So then I bought another home as my primary residence. So I moved again, and the house that I was living in, this time I did keep it as a rental. This to me was my first real experience being a landlord, because I'm not renting to roommates. I'm renting to a person that does not live with me, like a real tenant living in that house all by themselves. And ultimately, it was a great experience. The house that I moved into did a little bit of work. I kind of rinse and repeat this model, and the market went really well, and I sold it at a point where I cashed out a lot of money, and I really didn't know where to go. So I just looked back and I was like, I already have a house. The lease is about to expire. What if I just moved into the house that I did already live in? And that's what I did. So with all these investments that I cashed out, I had enough to pay off my primary mortgage at 30 years old, and had enough where I was able to put 20% down on another rental property. So now I'm back to 2 homes, one primary that's paid off in full, and then one rental property that's collecting rent every month. So to recap, we did this not necessarily through working 3 or 4 different jobs, picking up side gigs, or spending long hours at the office trying to get overtime. This entailed us doing something completely different. We got into real estate early, and I think that makes a huge difference, because you give yourself time to build equity. We learned a new skill. For me, it was real estate. I learned about real estate through the eyes of a real estate agent, and just taking calculated risks, taking action. It entailed not making consistent money, but big chunks of money through real estate investments, where we were able to attack the mortgage in really 3 or 4 big swings. So I really hope this helps. I hope this helps somebody become mortgage free if they're not already so. And if you are mortgage free, I hope you stay mortgage free. It's tempting to tap into your equity, but from what my friend told me, it makes a lot of sense to me. Separate your personal and your business. If you're tapping into your equity for business purposes, don't do it with your primary residence. Find that money some other way. If you find this helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.